Hi everybody, this is Krishna Vandanapu, Microsoft Business Applications MVP. Welcome to my channel. We are doing Power Apps Functions 0 to Hero series and we are in part 6. In this video, I would like to cover about various data source operation functions. I don't think anyone could do anything in Power Apps without knowing these basic functions: filter, lookup, patch, concurrent, data source info, and last but not least, errors. Let us see each and every function. Why do we need and how we can implement in Power Apps. Before any further delay, reading data from data source into Power Apps has many ways. They are filter, lookup, collect, or direct association of data to a gallery or to any control on the screen. Let us see each and every function and their syntax, and let's implement them in Power Apps. I logged on to Power Apps Maker Studio. First thing first, let me add the data source, which is my SharePoint list, which has more than 15,000 records, which we are using from last 5 series. I have added my student information SharePoint list. First function I would like to discuss is filter. As per Microsoft, the definition of the filter is the filter function finds the records in a table, could be a data source, could be a collection, that satisfy a formula. Use filter to find a set of records that match one or more criteria and to discard those that don't, which means that basically it will find the set of records which are satisfying a given condition. And if we see the filter syntax, filter followed by a table, it could be a data source. When I say data source, it could be a collection internally created in the app. It need not be a data source which I have attached to my SharePoint list. What I mean to say here is it could be my SharePoint list name or it could be my collection name, followed by a formula or set of formulas. And the filter works with respect to the delegation. Now that we know the syntax of filter, let's go ahead and use the filter into our Power App. What I wanted to do is, this is a gallery control. I'm including a gallery control to see the data from my student table with a criteria as my student information should be filtered with state as Alabama and local education agency should be Albertville City. Let us see how we can implement that. Now I need to say filter followed by my data source, which is student information, which is nothing but the table as per the syntax, and followed by my criteria or the condition state equal to Alabama and local education agency equal to. Now the time I provided the data has been filtered. Now I'm changing my layout of the gallery from default layout to type, title and subtitle. And let me change this to title is that, which is nothing but this. Now I wanted to ensure that I got what I said. State is Alabama, very good. And local education agency must be Albertville City. And if I play this is my result set. So what it does is it went ahead and filtered my data as per the filter condition I have provided as part of my filter query. So if you see, the result of this filter is a table. How I could know whether my filter provided some result set or not? Go and select the query and it will show a small icon over here. Just click on that icon. It will show you all the results as part of that filter query. And It also shows what is the return type of this query, whether it is a table or a single record set or a simple string value. This is very handy when we are writing formulas in Power Apps. It will show you the results at then and there, and also it shows you what is the data type I'm getting as part of my formula. This formula is giving me the return data type as table. This is one way to get the data from data source to SharePoint screen. And the next approach is collect. If you wonder what is a collect, we have already discussed what is a collect and how collect works as part of our Power Apps functions 0 to hero series part 2. I'm providing the link to that video as part of the description. Please go ahead and watch that video to understand how to use collect and clear collect and their syntax. Now let me go ahead and create a collection as part of a button click. I'm creating create collection. On select of this, what I wanted to do is clear collect student information is my data source. Here the syntax is I need to provide the collection name. What is the collection name? Student information followed by my data source. I can say like this. What happens is the time I say like this, it will assign my student information list data to student collection. But how many records it will associate? It will associate as per my application boundaries. My application has a maximum number of rows which I can retrieve from the data source is 500 records. So it will get the first 500 records. What is the maximum value I can provide here? I can provide only 2000. If the time I say 2001, it says like, sorry, you can provide the values between 1 to 2000. So by default, every app will come with the data limit as data row limit as 500. So the time I generate this collection, when I click on this button click, it will generate the collection. And if I highlight that collection, it is showing as it's a table as a return data type, and it shows all the 500 items as part of that collection. Now my filter can perform the filter operation on top of collection also. The same filter, how I can write is I can say my collection student information. This also performs the very same operation, but only the difference is my collection is now internal to the list. If there are any new data, if there are any new records added with this criteria, it will not be able to show as part of the gallery. The reason is the collection is built at the Power App level. It won't get refreshed when you add a new data, but if you perform the filter on top of the data source directly, it will get the latest data also. And if I see, this also perform the same operation. If you see, the time I completed my filter query, the data got filtered with respect to my filter query condition. But if you notice one thing, I have to specify Alabama as uppercase when I'm performing a filter against a collection. But while I'm performing the filter against the data source, I have not provided the Alabama in uppercase. If I just say that Alabama, I don't get it, because collection is case sensitive. The data has to be accurate. But if I perform the same operation against the data source, I need not to perform. I need not to specify the same case sensitive. If I see without text as uppercase, I'm able to get if it is a data source, and if it is again as a collection, I need to specify the text in uppercase. Next function is lookup. As per Microsoft, the syntax for lookup is Syntax and the definition for lookup. The lookup function finds the first record in the table that satisfies the formula and lookup to find a single record that matches one or more criteria. If you see that, lookup is to get the data from the data source or from a table, but this time this function returns only one record. It doesn't return the data set as a table. The data set is a simple record. The syntax for lookup is table followed by a formula and reduction formula. Reduction formula is optional. You don't have to specify. And the beauty with the lookup is I can also specify out of this record which column I want to see as part of my result set. Let us go ahead and see how we can implement that. Now let me create one more gallery and add filter, this time on the student information list, and I wanted to use the very same condition and see what is the result set for this time. If I see my result set is a record, and if I expand, I got only one record. As the definition says, lookup will not go through the entire data set. It will get the first possible match from the data source, which means if we see the difference between filter and lookup, filter gets the result set as a table. It will look for the information in the data source and it returns as a table. But whereas lookup looks at the data source and gets the first possible record, whatever the first match, it will stop further processing and it will get only that record. And if we come back, this is the gallery I have, and let me change the gallery from table to title and subtitle, only two values, and this one I wanted as a state, and this one I wanted as a local agency group, and this one is also local agency name. So the same query I am the same condition I'm using. In case of lookup, I get only one record, but in case of filter, I get the record set. And the beauty with lookup is very quick when I perform that. If I want to get only one record out of my data set, it is always good to use lookup. As I said, I can get a specific value from my lookup. What does that mean is out of this, I want to get the ID of the record. I can get that. If I want to get any other information for that specific record, I can get by specifying which column I want. If I see that out of that, what is the result we are looking for? When I say local user group, local agency, I can get the local agency, whatever it is, or any other column, say like category. If I want to get, I can say category. I can get the category. So this is the beauty with lookup function. Next function I would like to cover is patch. Patch is to push the data back to data source. How that works is if I change any data in any particular record, if I want to push the data back to data source, I can use patch. Patch works on both collections and the data source. If we see the syntax and the definition of the syntax of the patch is patch, data source, a base record, and change records. And patch works as two ways. Patch works as adding a new record or updating the existing record. Let us see the both operations, how we can implement as part of our Power App. In this example for patch, I have added a form to the screen and provided my data source as student information, and I have added two buttons, one as add and update, and I made the form default behavior to form mode as new. Now my requirement is I want to add a new record to my data source. How I can do that is I can say patch followed by table name. Here, I wanted to add a new record, right? I'll have to say defaults student information followed by provide all the values. If you see, this is my title and title value is this is my data card value. I'll say that dot text followed by state name is data card 2 value and followed by I'll say state and the data is text and so on and so forth for all the other values. For time being, I'm adding only 2 records and we will update the remaining records as part of updating the existing record. And if I see how it will work is say like sample demo and I'll say state as North Carolina and I'll say 1 2 3 4 5 6 and education agency as test and number of valid as 14 and category as all students. I know I am not mapping all this, but intentionally I'm specifying all these values. The time I click on add, what it will do is it will add a record into my student information. When I just say large to small, back into my data source, in my data source, I can see my latest created data as sample demo and the state as NC, but all the other values are blank because I have not specified the values of all other columns. Now, I wanted to update those values as part of the same patch, but this time I need to ensure that I am not adding a new record, but I'm updating the existing record. How I will do that is in the same patch, I will say patch, but this time I need to specify which record I wanted to update. I need to say I need to get that record as lookup. What is my data source? Data source is student information and the condition is this. This is my condition where my data is title is this and state is this. If I have any record of that, then update the same record with the values as any ID as this value dot text that data card dot text and followed by next one is local education agency is this one dot text and followed by number of valid test takers value is this data card and so on and so forth. We can specify all the other values. So for now, taking time into consideration, I am not specifying all the remaining columns. I am getting an error when I hover over. I can see that number of valid test takers is a number value. Let me say that as value as now my text has been converted into value. Now let us go ahead and see how this will work. Now I wanted to update my existing record. When I click on update, it just processed my data. When I refresh that, I should be able to see my other columns also with the latest values. There you go. I have the sample demo state as NC, NCES ID as 1 2 3 4 5 6 and local education agency is test number of valid test takers are 14. So this is how we can perform the data operations back to data source using patch. Does patch works only against a data source? No, I can add a record into my collection also. Let us see how we could do that adding a new record to collection with the help of patch. Now I'll say this button, I'm adding a button patch to collection. That is my name of my button. And as part of this, what I'm going to do is first I'm creating a collection, clear collect, collect student info followed by my student information data source. This creates a collection. After that, I wanted to add my patch to add to this collection information followed by same syntax. There won't be any difference. This same syntax I'll copy here and I will add over here and just close the parenthesis. Now, if I run this code block without this patch, let us see what is my collection, and after patch what is my collection. I have executed this. Now my collection got created. If I go back and see, this is my collection. I don't have my data here. When I see the state of this is only Alabama I have. Now if I just uncomment that code and execute this, it will create the collection and also adds my new record as part of that collection with the state name as NC. That is how I can add a record to a collection or to a data source. Now I have added the data to data source. I can as well add this entire data set back to my data source. Now if I say patch student information with my collection, what this will do is it will create these many records into my data source. I perform this operation, it will create 500 new records at one go because my collection has 500 records. The new record is 501 record with the state as North Carolina. And if I say patch my data source name followed by collection, all my 501 items will be added to my student information table. Okay, so which means that I can directly dump my collection to a data source, or I can add a new record to a collection, or I can add a new record or update a record into my data source. That is how we can use patch into Power Apps. And the next function is concurrent. The concurrent function is very key function. We need to know as app maker because concurrent function performs more than one operation in a parallel threading manner. If we see the syntax for the concurrent function is the definition shows that evaluate multiple formulas concurrently with one another, and the syntax is concurrent formula 1 formula 2 and so on and so forth. So most of the times app maker want to get the data from data source and put it into a collection, or app maker want to initiate another component which could be a flow, or it could be invoking another control. Those functionalities will be added as part of app on start event. Now on app start, I will be creating two collections. Collection one is with the entire data set, and collection 2 I will be creating with a condition as the filter with state as Alabama and local education agency group as Albastor City. Now if I run this app, it will create two collections, but these two collections will be created one after other. That will take a lot of time if the data set is huge with number of columns. But if I say the concurrent on top of it, and I just say that concurrent collection 1 comma collection 2, and if I just run this, these two collections will be created at the same time. For collection 1, creating collection 1 and collection 2 will be invoked at the same time. That will give you more performance when we have multiple set of statements to be executed as part of app start, or if I want to perform a patch to multiple lists with the same data, always use concurrent to perform the same operation at the same time. And the next function is data source info. Data source info, if we look at the syntax of data source info, if we see the data source info provides information about data source, which is very straightforward. But when we see what it exactly does is data source info will provide you whether the user has a create permission or not, delete permission or not, edit permission or not, which is very, very handy. Data source info followed by data source and what is the information it is you are looking at, and the column name, and the syntax is that. And when we see the examples, classic example they are using is the data source info. Ice cream is the data source, and the data source info dot display name for the for the specific column name, and that will show whatever the display name for that data source column. If we see the business scenario for this function is, most of the times when we give the screen as a free text field, user will key in the data like the way they want. But if I want to ensure that the user is not exceeding the maximum limits I have specified for my list columns, I need to ensure that there must be a validation against my field. In this scenario, I have specified a number of valid test takers should not go 5,000 and should not be less than 1. So if I wanted to test this as part of my add or update functionality, I need to create a formula as like this. What I'm doing is I am getting the data source info. I'm getting the data source info of my student information followed by data source info dot max value for the column number of valid test takers. If that value is less than the value I have provided as part of my form field, which is nothing but this is my data card 5. Data card 5 dot value is less than the maximum limit, then I'm showing that maximum value is 5,000. If not, I'm letting the user to add a new record. Let us see how it works. I specified 5002, and if you see, it is not letting me to add this. So but advantage here is if I use this function, if tomorrow the database schema got changed, and if the administrator want to change the values from 5,000 to any value, say like now I got an update from business that the value could be more than 5,000, and it could be maximum of 15,000. Now I will go back and I'll just let me refresh the data source. Now if I go back and test that sample one state as NC 1 and here again I'm giving value as 5,002. And if this time when I just try, it didn't give me any error because it is less than 5,000. So less than 15,000. But if the time I say 15,002, when I say try to add, I'll get a value as 5,000 because I have hard coded the error message as 5,000. But here I can as well say I can just get this and add it as part of my query error message. I will get that whatever it is. It can be maximum of 15,000. So this way I can ensure that my maximum limits or minimum limits are within the boundaries of the required field values. And the next function is errors. Errors, if we see the syntax for errors, errors will validate against the data source, provide errors information for previous changes to the data source, or while doing the patch as well. So how does that work is errors, syntax of that is errors, data source, and the record. So while doing the patch, I can ensure that there are no errors as part of that. How I can do that is while doing the operations against the data source, I can ensure that there are no issues in the data. What is that is, if I don't do this data source validation, and if I directly update that, it will not work because my maximum number of valid test takers is exceeded my data card value. Data card value is 15,000, but maximum allowed value is only 15,000. Exceeded 15,000 and actual value is only 15,000. This will not get success if I just run my code like this. If I come back and see, I see an error stating that value must be between 1 to 15,000. If I want to show that error interactively to the user, how I can do that is we can use this syntax as errors of this data source patch followed by whatever the patch command we wanted to add, and is empty of that. If this is not empty, it will show record not got added successfully. This is how we can handle the errors at the time of adding the patch. In this video, we have covered most important key functions, which are filter, lookup, patch, concurrent, data source info, and errors. If you like my video, do comment, like, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for all future notifications. And this is my contact information. I am highly available in Twitter, LinkedIn. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. Have a nice day. Thank you.